Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Impractical Machinists Podcast. My name is Patrick. You can find me on Instagram as @JobShopperTM.
And I'm Cameron from Machining is Cool. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we'd appreciate a 5-star rating.
I'm Bradley with Marvel Machining. Also, if you're on YouTube, be sure to give us a like and subscribe to the Practical Machinist YouTube channel.
On this episode, we are joined by Sam Stuard, Director of Operations for Monarch Manufacturing in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. Today, Sam is here to share the story of how ECI, an ERP software company, has helped him along his journey. Hello, Sam. How are you, sir?
Good, guys. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on, man. How's the weather up there in Pennsylvania right now?
It's pretty beautiful. It's going to be 80 today, so.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
starting to cool off a little bit. So, Sam, if you would, we can get started. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and the company that you work for.
So, Sam Stuard, 41 years old, and been in this business for a while. I got involved in manufacturing because I had a motorsport sponsor, had a machine shop, and was like, hey, I can handle your schedule a little bit better if you're working for me in the machine shop. So I kind of got thrusted into this thing, and then had to learn a lot of it as I went. I had a background in fabrication, so kind of picked up some of the machining and manufacturing stuff as we went. But I've been involved now with it. I was involved in another business for about a decade and decided to start my own business, Monarch, in 2015. It's been an incredible ride. It's been great. We were a small business. I did a lot of CAD and consulting work, and over the years, we've had more clients kind of just ask us, "Hey, you're doing the CAD work, you're doing the design work. Can you do our manufacturing as well?" And being that I had experienced a lot of those processes, code welding and machining, and basically running every piece of equipment on the shop floor, we just started to bring in small pieces of equipment and then employees, and of course, all that growth brings complexity, and now we're into this ERP system stuff. So it's been a really cool, really fun journey. Tons of work, as everyone knows. It's a lot of work to be an owner operator. It's exciting. A lot of fun stuff, a lot of cool stuff. We do kind of anything from agricultural parts to aerospace stuff. We're currently involved in a lot of pharma weldments, vibratory screening, filtering, things like that, which has been a really interesting market to get into. Not a ton of machining work, but a lot of manufacturing, a lot of interesting sublets of the industry that I wasn't really versed in before, that I've had to learn a lot about, like specific finishes and weldments and new welding processes, things like that.
Wow. So you guys really cover a lot of bases there.
A lot of it, yeah. We're pretty wide. I mean, my previous experience was as a vice president of another company that was a job shop, and so the owner liked to say we do everything that we can make money on, and I've tried to stay away from that a little bit. But we're still pretty much a job shop. A lot of our work is motorsport related, or just like vibratory filtering and kind of aerospace work. And our shop is situated on a military base, so we do have some work specifically with the military, but that stuff has kind of gone away over the last few years.
Do you take walk-ins?
We do. We get the random like race car guy that wants to bring something in. That's a difficult proposition, as everyone knows. I mean, it's like, is it a market I'm really interested in? We want to serve the community, so we want to be available for that stuff. Is it worth your time? It's just one of those difficult things that
Yep.
I make it worth
your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost never.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's hard to make it work. I mean, a lot of our stuff that walks in, it's we're not the mower deck repair shop for the lawnmower thing. But if it's a race car thing, so that's kind of our niche. We'll do something. But those guys always want it now, so it's tough.
Yeah.
and for half the price that they could.
Yeah, for half the price.
I had an old guy come in a week before last on a Friday. I was just up at the shop doing some stuff by myself, and he had a cylinder head from a Kawasaki Mule, a 2000 Kawasaki Mule that he wanted the spark plug hole repaired on. And he had already put a helicoil in there, but then the helicoil burned up. So he wanted me to take the helicoil out, fully welded up, and then remachined the hole for the spark plug. I was like, my welder will be back to work on Monday. I'll see if he wants to weld it up, and if he can, then sure. And then like 12:30 on Monday, he shows up. He's like, hey, I've been calling. He's like, you guys don't answer your phone? I was like, well, the phone's in the office. He's like, yeah. I was like, I'm not going to sit in the office all day and wait for the phone to ring. I've got work to do. He's like, well, I've been leaving voicemails. Y'all don't check your voicemails? I was like, no. It's usually spam anyway. I'm not.
Yeah, right.
We're a machine shop. We're dealing with big customers. I'm not sitting around answering phones for you, you know?
How about we'll call you when it's done. Answer your
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and he gave me his phone number. I was actually literally going to call him back in like the next 10 minutes and be like, hey, sorry, man, we're not going to be able to handle it. But
Oh, man.
I'm actually, after that interaction, I was like, I've had enough of this. I'm putting a sign up on the way up to the shop that says visitors by appointment only.
Yeah.
Absolutely no walk-in work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been getting good at saying no to people. I had a guy call me recently and he was pretty upset. I don't know what he wanted. I was like, yeah, no, I don't do that stuff. He's like, come on, man. You can't just get it done real quick. I'm like, no.
Yeah. And the hard part too is I want to say yes because I like to help people out. You know, like even that cylinder head, I was going to try to figure out how to do it real quick. Like I could squeeze it in. It wouldn't be that difficult. But
Right.
in reality, I shouldn't have been. You know, I shouldn't have been trying to squeeze that in. I've got a lot of work to do that's a lot more important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Learning how to say no that's definitely a trait we need to be better at. I'm not the best
still-
at it.
Yeah, I always ask that, Sam, because I've worked for a place that loved walk-in stuff. Farmers and what would you call it? DIY home engineers with the next great idea, that kind of thing, and it's tough. Yeah, clearly, I mean, you guys have really been successful and carved out a niche because that amount of like almost snowballing from starting here and now look at where you're at. That's really cool. It's very impressive.
Thank you. It's been a journey, obviously, but it's been a ton of work. I mean, I think onto the subject of walk-in work, like we really don't advertise much. And I think people don't really realize, hey, there is a machine shop down the street, and that's probably a good thing. We kind of just do our thing, and the people that know us, hey, we know we'll do that little part, but it's probably going to be a few days. It's like I got this $20,000 job on the machines right now, and I need this $50 part.
Exactly.
That's the point I try to get across to these guys. And I don't even know how they find us because you obviously haven't seen our shop, but there's no sign. Like you pass the driveway in the road and it's literally like a paved driveway that switchbacks up a hill. Or it's just like all you see is a paved driveway and woods and you don't even know what's up there. And they still drive up there, go past the house, and then go find the shop that's way back there to like actually come and have us fix their lawnmower blade.
Google.
It's that word of mouth advertising, man.
I need to, you know what? We are on Google Maps. I need to take us off of there.
Yeah.
People
come to my place there. I was like, well, I put in your address and I couldn't find it. So I just typed Marvel Machine and I found you.
How many employees do you have, Sam?
Right now we have 4 full-time guys, like kind of 2 part-timers, and we need to hire. We need to hire probably 2 guys. We've had 5 full-time guys, and we kind of need to get back to at least 6. As we continue to grow, I'm trying to, I had a goal of like pulling myself completely off the shop floor by the time I turned 40, and we've gotten better at that. But there's still some intrinsic things that I'm doing, more of the CNC stuff that we've kind of struggled to find talent for, and so I'm still handling some of that stuff. Some of our machine work has gone to China, unfortunately, but we are looking for some more welders, and it's a difficult job, and the stuff that we do it's not easy MIG welding. A lot of our stuff is kind of a blend of engineering and artisan work. So we do a lot on the exhaust industry side, and those clients are the ones that are doing like the open box reviews on YouTube and like, oh my gosh, these welds look so good. And, so we have a pretty intrinsic QC process. Stuff has to get blasted. And then, we just analyze everything kind of to death to make sure everything's perfect. So it's hard to find people that you think will be able to do that in a year or two. So it's a lot of coaching, a lot of training to be able to get them to that point. So it's the same problem that everyone has, is like, well, is this guy going to stay with me after I train them for 2 or 3 years? And at what point are they going to be valuable to us?
Yeah. So what has your hiring experience been like? over the past 10 years?
Well, luckily with Monarch, we found a couple good guys, and then they bring their friends. Usually good guys kind of walk with other good guys as well. So that's like one of those Dave Ramsey things he talks a lot about. I know they will give stipends to employees that bring along other employees that are good, that are friends of theirs. And so we've tried to do some of those things as well, just make sure someone can vouch for them. So we do all the traditional things, Facebook ads and online ads and LinkedIn stuff. And it's difficult. We're in a funny spot geographically. There's a lot of like Amazon warehouses and like 3PL stuff going on. So, you have these jobs that are like high 20s, $20 an hour to be a forklift driver. Yeah. So you're like competing with that market, and it's like, I could go make maybe a little more as a welder fabricator, but it's stressful and I have to do a good job, or I can, sort boxes. So it's like, oh man, it's a difficult location.
I definitely understand that. And yeah, it's hard because exactly like you say, it's similar here, and it's probably similar in a lot of parts of the United States, at least, because sure, you can go through school and then become a machinist and, start out at a place at like $18 to $20 an hour, which sounds good, but you can also go to like a boat manufacturer, a boat trailer manufacturer. There's dozens of those places around here, and you can start for the same kind of pay. And it's not as secure of a job, just like with, sorting boxes at Amazon or something like that. But I'm sure it is a little bit less stress, less investment on your part. So it certainly does make it hard to make entry-level positions appealing to people. But
I think what people need to understand, though, is it's, you take that entry-level position and you're building a career. And you're going to make more money in the long run. If you go take that $18 job at McDonald's, that's just what you're going to do.
Right.
Nothing's ever going to change. And then when you're 35 years old, you're going to hate yourself, and you're going to be, wishing you did something different.
Yeah.
No.
Sam, how much manufacturing is around you?
It's a pretty heavy manufacturing area, like central Pennsylvania, York, Pennsylvania had a lot to do with like ship manufacturing. The Navy stuff is in kind of Mechanicsburg. So like World War II areas kind of spawned a lot of manufacturing. A lot of those big businesses had converted and got into kind of medical and aerospace. Chambersburg specifically, there's not a ton. And we don't really have any local clients. So most of our stuff is not from here, which has been interesting because we've kind of leveraged that. Like, hey, we're bringing in jobs to this area with clients that we're not really competing with other local businesses. So that it makes like the Chamber of Commerce and stuff happy when we're doing things like that. But our area is pretty heavy in manufacturing. Yeah.
Okay. I'm always just curious, what it's like around these shops that I talk to, because it seems like every person, no matter where they are, is saying the same thing about hiring. Like, it's difficult to find people that will actually pan out as well. Like, that's even harder, obviously. And it seems like it almost doesn't matter if you're in a place that has a ton of manufacturing or no manufacturing. Like with where we are, there's like 2 other shops around us that actually would have a machinist. And then it's kind of just a vacuum. There's nothing else really around us. And so obviously it's going to be difficult to find a machinist in a place like that. But
right.
And you would think in like somewhere with a ton of manufacturing, you throw an ad up, you got people at all these different jobs that, some of them are, I don't know, some percentage of them have to not like where they're at and have to be looking. You would think you would pick somebody up, but.
Right.
Yeah. We've all of our employees, we've basically stolen from other facilities.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the question. That's the big question now, is how do you find talent? How do you find guys that are going to stay there for more than a few years?
Right.
And then the hard thing as a small business, you're trying to make sure you can make it a career for someone. Like how do I integrate the HR stuff into what we're doing, and how do we give good benefits in healthcare, and it's difficult for a small business to do that.
Yeah, at your size, yeah, because we're about the same size company, and it's not easy. Especially not easy to compete with anybody, any decently sized company. When I think, we've ran into it before. You've got somebody working somewhere, they're not happy where they're at. We can afford to pay them the same as where they're at, but we can't afford as good of healthcare, 401k matching, all that stuff,
Right.
benefits. So then we're just kind of like, well, all right.
You almost have to find people that are tired of the big company
Oh yeah.
thing.
Well, that's the thing I try to point out to people is like, I mean, yeah, we may not have, we do have health insurance, but we don't have like 401k matching or any of that stuff, as far as I remember, anyways. So not going to have the same benefits as the big companies. However, there are a lot of other benefits that come with working at a small company. Like we're obviously going to be way more laid back about things. It's easy. Like you're working with the owner or the manager of the entire company every day. So if you've got an idea, you want to change something, you don't like the way something works, you just say something about it and we'll look into it and figure out how we can make it better.
Right.
How long did your shop have no ERP system at all?
We went till 2022, so 6 years, and we do the thing of just running everything out of QuickBooks,
Right.
Which QuickBooks is trying to get better, and they're trying to do an entry level kind of system, but yeah. So we, they struggle with like the sales order side. So there's really nothing to track, so the tracking job costs and things like that with
Right.
QuickBooks. It's tough too. So we kind of started to make the decision, and I had integrated E2 into my last company around 2010, and the process went relatively well. It was easy to get everyone on board, and the work instructions were simple. Paper Travelers made it simple, and obviously over that integration period, it seemed like about 2 years to really get it firing well. What I loved was just how quickly we could execute, and how quickly my role at the time was profitability, just trying to make sure like, hey, what do we do on this job? Did we execute it well? What did we learn? How quickly can we understand what either went wrong or what went right? And we can either be more competitive the next time, or we need to fix this. We didn't have the right tooling in place. We didn't have the right training in place, not the right equipment. Do we want to do this job again and potentially lose money? And that's what I really liked about E2 at the time. It was just simple to run reports. We jumped right into making sure stuff was executable, and we got you get the data really quickly. And it was like, hey, I got a traveler. The job was done on my desk in 5 minutes. I knew, did we win or not? So that's kind of how I broke it down as my management style, or we winning or losing every day. And it's probably from a motorsport perspective, but it made it easy to want to decide to kind of go back to that system.
Yeah. So what was it like going from working at a company that had a fully integrated ERP like E2 to now you've got your own company, and for like 7 years, no ERP?
Yeah. Frustrating.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, it wasn't too bad, but as we started to add complexity and employees and jobs, and, you start out with like the new customer has 2 part numbers. Oh, this is kind of easy to track. And we do a lot in this exhaust industry. So it's like every iteration of every car has, brackets and systems and flanges and stuff that we machine. So it's, thousands and thousands of part numbers. And okay, now we have specific instructions for each one of those. And how do we make sure we're not losing tribal knowledge? If Joe Blow is on vacation, how do we get that part done if the customer still needs it when he's on vacation, and he's the only one that knows how to do it? So are we doing a bunch of stuff in spreadsheets? And I used to do a lot with like job Gants, make my own job Gants in like Google calendars, and before we brought in E2, just so I'd have some understanding of what the schedule looked like over a month load.
Right.
But it was a little frustrating in the beginning, because it's just, you want to be organized, you want to be able to do all these things, and without systems in place to help you be organized, it's just kind of chaos.
It feels so uncertain.
Yeah.
everything feels uncertain, because I've been in that position before where like we didn't have an ERP. I actually tried to create my own, which helped some with tracking things. But before that, it was literally just, a folder with a print and the PO. And you're like,
Right.
we'll stack these in a certain order and make them, I guess. But then just like Brad right there. But then like, you don't know, all right, we need to have this done, early enough because this is the lead time for plating, or it needs to go to heat treat, or this is a weldment. So we need to prep all of our material early, weld it together, and then machine it. And like all of that stuff you're not tracking. Or material. Like you don't know when the material is going to show up. You don't even know if it's been ordered, that sort of thing. And so it just feels so uncertain. You're like, I know I'm missing something somewhere. I don't know what it is, but there's got to be something that I missed. And then the mental load of trying to track all that stuff in your head.
Yeah.
Terrible as well.
Yeah, the mental load gets to, that's the stuff that people don't really calculate. You have to just know where everything is. And that's just, it takes a special breed of person to do that, and the desire to want to do that. That's what kind of wears on you after several years of doing it. Just, I know all this useless information about all this stuff in my shop, and it'd be so nice if we just had software to track this stuff for us.
And then you just don't even think about it. You're like, I don't know. I want a system that just tells me what to do.
Right.
I don't want to have to tell myself and everybody else what to do.
Right.
Just want to show up and be like, all right, cool, this is what we got to do today.
Yeah, we're in this era of apps that are so good,
Yeah.
and that's, I think in general, ERP is still catching up because it's just iteration after iteration. And it's like, okay, how do we build something that's modern with architecture from, 2007?
Yeah.
And
then still just keep people happy as well, because
exactly
the customers that are using the ERPs, they're going to complain, because not everything is going to fit everybody. I would say it almost hardly fits anybody perfectly. I don't know if there's really an ERP system out there that does fit everybody perfectly with how they all do things. And so you change one thing, and then now they're like, shit, what do I do?
How customizable are some ERP systems? Do you have can you change whatever you want, or do they kind of have a platform for you that you have to follow?
Obviously, big stuff like SAP is very, very customizable, but that's where you just it's almost hard to know what you want.
Yeah.
And I think most, with other industries as well, you hear that all the time. Well, the sales rep says, well, this customer doesn't really know what they want, so I'm just going to sell them what I think they need, because I'm used to hearing these questions. And so it is partially trying to create your systems based off of what the software does, and then being able to customize little parts of it. ECI, JobBOSS² does have the capability to create systems and new things that are completely customizable, which is great. But it's not, you're not in the weeds all the time of like, hey, I need to create something completely new that no one has ever done before. And it's like you need to have a software engineer on staff to be able to do that.
Yeah. How is, when something like that comes up, how is ECI's level of support for something like that?
It's been good so far. There were a few things that we did request. There was this in any software system, you find things that could be better. And we've had some requests like, why doesn't the software do this? So this could be better. And it's like, okay, sales thinks this might be an opportunity. Has sales ever heard that question before? Has like the back end, the training systems ever heard that question before? And then it's, okay, this might be something we should look at creating, because probably other shops may not even know that they might have that question in the future, or then are we looking at that problem from a different perspective, and maybe we need to think about it differently so we don't have that problem in the future. But they've been great. We're still relatively new with JobBOSS². We kind of just got everything integrated several months ago, so we had just brought that software back in 2025, but there's some things that we would like to customize a little bit better for our shop, so we can see jobs more effectively, and so that our customers they're actually able to log into ECI as well, and they can kind of see inventory sheets. And we used to have to do like we do a lot of Google Sheets, because we do that in the motorsport industry. We would create inventory tabs and be able to send customers, hey, this is what you guys have in inventory at our shop. And actually customers can now log into custom accounts with ECI and they can see their work being done and see our system. So we don't have extra work to do, which is nice.
That's cool. So they can actually hop in and look at the tracking for a specific job.
Yeah.
Like the tracking as far as, where you're at in the process of making it. Like, it's down in the middle and it's about to get sent to plating or whatever.
Right.
And then, or they're like, hey, I need to order like 2 of these. Let me check their inventory real quick. Oh, they got like 4 in stock. Cool.
Yeah. We used that in the past. We'd have customers like Raytheon that kind of want to see, engineers are curious to see where stuff is, and they want to log in and say, hey, you can use this link, see where your parts are, and, really logistically coordinated people that want to have a handle on everything, because some of the post-processing was difficult. If it's a global part, hey, we need to know exactly when this thing is going to come off the line, or could we get too early, that type of thing, because it needs to go, to somewhere.
Definitely cuts down on emails too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like when they can hop in and see where something's at in the process.
Yeah.
So on the subject of integration, Sam, if you would maybe walk us through kind of how that starts. I've worked at a company, the first shop I worked for, they had E2 already. Of course, it turned into JobBOSS². That is what it is. It was established. Most of the people that needed to use it, knew how to use it. I came here earlier this year, and they really, like you were talking, they're basically working out of QuickBooks. There's a few things I miss, and so the owner here has been talking about looking into, ERP software. So I'm curious how the integration of that goes to like a fresh new company.
Yeah, honestly, it was pretty simple. We had like an introductory discussion. Obviously, I talked to the sales team, and they wanted to make sure that the software was a fit for us, which we knew it would be. You kind of get, after you make the purchase, we move over to this integration team and the training systems, and the training with ECI JobBOSS² was extraordinarily simple. Now, it is coming from someone that has a background in computer programming, and so I'm pretty good at software, but most machine shops, there's at least someone there, because we're used to CAM and CAD and other software systems. But I think we had 4 or 5, hour and a half training sessions, and that you basically will pick a specific job that might be a problem child, and we can work through that specific job and train you in the system to be able to create estimates and quotes and orders, and then purchase orders and things like that. So they walk you through all of those processes, and to a certain extent then kind of give you some time to be able to play around and learn the software a little bit on your own. And I already had experience with E2, so I knew a little bit more how the software worked, but it did have a refresh. I had never used JobBOSS before. I was using the old, looked like kind of Windows ME or, Windows 95 or something with E2, and it had been changed and updated, which it seems like it flows a lot better now. It's a lot more intuitive for me. But, over the course of like really just 5 or 6 sessions, I was able to figure out exactly how the system worked. And then towards the end of those training sessions, you start to work on the integration onto the shop floor. So the beauty of ECI is that it is very, very simple on the shop floor. It's important that the person that writes the job actually creates the traveler correctly, so that the work path, the workflow is done correctly. So it's, you're not plating a part before it's cut on the water jet or laser or something like that. But you basically end up with this traveler that follows the part through all of its processes. And so it's rudimentary, but it's easy for the guys on the shop floor to understand what it is that they have to do and the order that they do it in. And I always tried to add in as much notes as I thought the guys would need. So like, hey, I'm looking at the prints, and this might be difficult to hit or constrain. Make sure you're looking at this, because this is going to distort after X amount of welding. So I put those things in, and then give the guys an opportunity to follow my direction, or, hey, I think this is going to be better. And then they can write down on the traveler, hey, this is what I did. we executed, it went well. I did these in these steps. And then when I got the traveler back to me in the office, I'd update it. This is what we did last time. It just seemed really simple to integrate the correct way to do it and then understand if we make money or not. I mean, it's like, to me, that's the big thing is like, if I don't know, if it takes me a lot of like superfluous computer work and reporting to understand that, hey, we're not really where we want to be on this job. Like it doesn't add a lot of value to me. I want to be able to know like quickly, 5 minutes, hey, we killed it. We could do better the next time. That's what added a lot of value to me. So that the process is pretty straightforward, like 4 or 5 weeks. And then it's a lot of like just dialing in processes and procedures. Okay, you'll start to find little problem areas. Like we always end up having like this packing and shipping, and okay, how do we get the right information to the packing and the shipping department whenever the job isn't completed because the customer needs partials. So it's like, how do we make that process work smoothly so that the person knows what it is they're packing and shipping. And it's like, okay, do we have more screens, more computers, more like secondary pieces of paperwork? It's all about how you kind of program it to work, what it is that you need to do. And so that's the stuff that kind of takes time. You kind of look through the easy jobs are like, hey, it just gets welded, machined, and shipped. There's not a lot of steps to it. But then there's ones that are, if out of house processes, it comes back in for, it might be a hard turn part after heat treat or something. And then it's got to get plated, and then it has to, there's a difficult QC process. And so you kind of use those ones to help train your people as well. Cause you can see like, hey, this is going to be a sticking point. Let's use this job as a litmus test for how well we do. And then ultimately you kind of let the guys run with it. And then, you find opportunities to keep training in the future.
What does the training implementation actually look like for the guys on the shop floor?
So we did one specific training with ECI, and then there's a bunch of online tutorial stuff. So we'll do like some really basic things. We'll go over travelers, we'll go over processes, but like I said, the beauty is it's very, very simple because it's like you have a basic time clock on the work center, and it's just basically a log in, log out. Do we want to batch entry time into a specific job? And there are opportunities for employees to look up jobs if they didn't have a router, if they didn't have a traveler, because it seems like there's always that opportunity. Hey, paperwork got missed, the first page got torn, or hey, there's a spall on there that it burnt the page, wherever I have to log into this thing or whatever. And so there's ways to search for things and log into multiple steps at once. That's the one thing I like about JobBOSS² is I'm able to log 3 or 4 steps at once, and it kind of auto splits everything, and it's simple to do from the work center.
That's nice. That's interesting. I was in on a call here with another ERP company and the owner and the machine shop manager, and I can't remember what company it was, but that was one of those sticking points, because a lot of times we might be working on a couple jobs at once. I might have one job in this machine, one job in this machine, maybe programming or designing another part. That software, whatever it was, it couldn't do that automatically. You'd have to go back and tell it, okay, put 25% of my time to this, 25% to this, 25 to this, or whatever. And that kind of really killed us using that software, because we really do need that.
It sounds like a pain.
Oh yeah.
Like I think a lot of, especially job shops, you've got one guy working on multiple jobs on multiple machines at a time. The CNC machine's doing a bunch of work for you, so you set that thing up and let it run, and then you start on something else. And so logging into multiple jobs, it seems like a pretty basic thing you would need to be able to do.
And I will say one of the I don't want to say downfalls, but one of my frustrations with ERPs in the past was just really more on the company side than the ERP software side. I've seen so many cases where companies are basically collecting data for the sake of collecting data, and they're not actually doing anything with it. Like Sam, you're talking about, taking somebody's clock in data and going back to the system, and in a few minutes you can see, okay, we either did good or we didn't. And your employees are trained well enough that you can trust them to clock in correctly so that you're not cut 5 hours on this job or 5 hours over because of a clock in issue. And it makes everything simple. And then when you have revisions, someone's actually doing something with that. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of cases where you might even go to the person and tell them, hey, instead of 2 hours of cycle time on this part, we need 3. And you get the job 6 months down the road and you look on the traveler and it still says 2 hours.
2 hours, right?
I'm that guy.
Dang it. Yeah.
I've got like 7 sticky notes on my desk right now. Stuff that needs updated.
Right. Well,
It's me.
the thing is, though, obviously, in some cases that's understood because, like in any case, if you're getting pulled in 15 directions,
Right.
you can only expect so much of that kind of thing. Now, how do you handle that, Sam? Do you have a way to make that easier, or is it simply just when he's done and you do it because you're the head honcho?
It's a really multifaceted answer because if it doesn't get done, are you harming culture? The machinist is frustrated because, so what we did in the past was, we would try to, really reward guys that were hitting their like productivity numbers. So you have to find ways to make the ERP really practical for the shop floor. So if you don't look over the job router and traveler when it comes back in, like what's the point of using the software really? So I just try to make it, as soon as something gets done. Now, it'll be a week until that thing kind of gets into my desk or something, but I'll go through, usually my guys work 410, so Fridays are my catch-up day. So, Fridays I'll go through all the routers that were completed that week. We go and I put any notes that they put on the travelers into the system and double check profitability, look at anything specific that like they did out of process and try to move some things around. But if you're not doing that, like what's the point of having just this extra software system that becomes cumbersome then? And like I said before, like if you don't, we all know that it's difficult to integrate software into the front office. And then it's, the guys are like, you're just going to be tracking my time. And, I want to spend more time in the bathroom and you're going to be tracking that too. It's like, so how do you change that? How do you change that culture to a winning mentality of like, hey, this stuff is good for you. And it really helps the people that are great shine even more. So I can now see from a data perspective, like you are doing better. Like you've been telling me, hey, I want to raise, but I don't really see it. But now it's like black and white because you're 98% productive and everyone else is 78%. So it's.
I worked at a shop years ago that kind of went through that, and they ended up posting everybody's productivity on a sheet, so you could see, you could see where you fell at, and then you're like, well, shit, like I need to do better. This is kind of embarrassing. And I think at one point they started offering, you get like a t-shirt or a hoodie or something if you were top 3 or whatever it was. I mean, not that everybody cares to get a t-shirt or a hoodie, but it's still when everybody sees you at the bottom of the list, it's like, that guy's not doing his job.
Right.
And then, obviously, if that's you, you're probably worried that, oh shit, I could get fired. Like, you better.
They did that a lot in like the automotive industry, with flat rate. They would kind of post like who's working the most flat rate hours, and flat rate is an efficiency perspective. So like, hey, if I can do 4 oil changes while I'm doing a transmission change and diagnostic and things like that, like I can work 40 hours a week and get paid for 80. And so we kind of use that mentality as well. Like let's get to a system where I can reward the people that are really doing well. It's that question of like, get the right people in the right seats on the bus and get the wrong people out of the transportation, system. So help the guys that are really doing well and the guys that are really doing well will see like, hey, I can run the saw while I'm turning these parts on the lathe. Like as long as they're close enough and it's
Right.
not running back and forth. But I would do that a lot when I was working as a machinist. Like I'd be catting something, I'd be machining something, I'd be doing something, and it's like, hey, I'm 160% productive compared to everyone else that's just doing the 80%, because that's just the bar where we set it at. So
Right. So people just have that drive to do better.
yeah,
Some people just got that dog in them.
right. And you do have to reward that too, because those guys are the ones that will leave if they're not being
Right.
compensated for that.
Yeah. And will probably get happily accepted somewhere else.
Right.
So when you're talking about rewarding employees for that, how does that look? Like, what are you actually doing?
Currently, Monarch isn't really doing anything like that yet, but that's as we are integrating this stuff better. I'm now, after about 3-4 months of being live on the floor, we are getting good data back. That's one of the hard parts is can you trust the data?
Right.
Are the guys actually logged into the correct step? And you also have to look at like, okay, we did this 3-hour job in 3 hours or 2.5, but where was the other 6.5 or 8, 7.5 hours of the day?
Yeah.
And did it disappear somewhere, or did they put time in like a maintenance work center? Was everything accounted for? So you have to make sure that you can trust your profitability notes, which is a big part of this integration process. So then once you get to a place that for a fact that you're actually logging the time all effectively, then you can start to really reward. And you have to do some of that early on, because anything on the shop floor, it can be tedious and the guys don't really want to do it. So, we do like kind of over the board, like steak lunches and stuff. Like I'll just go to, get a bunch of ribeyes and we'll do like a big cookout, have an extended lunch, and, just kind of chat about like what's going on, what can we do better? And not necessarily a business perspective, but we'll just try to do something that's, hey, this is like it's a $50 dinner. We're doing it for lunch, and we'll do that like once a couple months or something like that. But I do like posting information, because I think employees really do want to see how well they're doing, and they want to look at that number like, hey, I'm giving my all, and it looks like I'm at 120% compared to everyone else's 80, and I know that there's a connection between that number and how management perceives me, and then I'm gonna get whatever reward there is. So we're on the process now to kind of making that stuff real, and it might be a $50 gift card to something that month or whatever, but we just have to kind of figure out what makes sense for our specific situation.
I think tracking their productivity as well, and like actually like them being able to see that number, like, oh, I'm 120% productive. I think it's helpful too whenever they know where they stand with management, and management also knows where they stand. Like everybody's on the same page about how good or bad you're performing.
Right.
And if somebody's performing really low and you have the numbers to back it up also, like you can have that sit down conversation, be like, look, man, this is where you're at in comparison to everybody else. I'm not saying you need to be at 120% like everybody else, but like some of these other people, but it's time to start making some improvements. We need to figure something out. And it's not like a big surprise when you come to them and be like, hey man, so for the past like year, I've been watching you and you've been underperforming. It's like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They already know by the time you have that conversation, they haven't been doing that good.
Yeah.
I was curious, Sam, kind of on that note, like as far as performance and things like that, I guess it's more of an HR thing, depending on how you look at it. But do ERP softwares handle things like that as well? Like you can file write-ups or things like that?
Yeah, we aren't using anything in ECI currently, but there are mechanisms in each person's folder for write-ups and for your standard like training applications, and hey, this person received a quarterly review. This is a result, so it does help kind of centralize a lot of that stuff. And then anyone can kind of, for like an audit, you can kind of go in and see, hey, this person their scrap rate went to, 200%. This is kind of what happened. This is the date. And we had this conversation, and then it, was resolved, something like that. But yeah, they are multifaceted now, so that you can kind of have all that information stored centrally.
So do you do quarterly reviews then?
Yeah, we try. I mean, I try.
Sure.
I shouldn't say we try. It's difficult to make sure you have time to do all those things. My guys will probably hear it and be like,
think about it.
Yeah. I try to get as much positive feedback and reinforcement as often as possible. So we know, I like to share all the data on when we did a job. Hey, we knocked it out of the park on this, this set of headers, or this, we're working on some like crazy custom staircase stuff right now. And, like, this is where we're at. This is what we quoted. This is what the customer expected. And this is where we're at profitability right now, which is fun. I like to share that information as well. So everyone knows, like, no one wants to be part of a losing team. So
Right.
we all want to see, like, hey, we want the team to win. So these are the jobs that we need to do better on. Some of that is the salesman, the quoter needs to do better as well. Like, we need to be able to inform the client, like, hey, we can't hit that price point without either investing in this new technology, or this is just going to be the ledger leader. This is the one we're going to have to lose money on so that we get the other work type of situation. And that information just needs to be explained, so that whenever you share those reports, everybody kind of understands, okay, we did better on this one. We're always going to break even on these ones. We're killing it on these ones. And these are the ones where we need to focus our thoughts on and just get better at repeatability.
Do you ever catch, like, mid-job, like, hey, this is not tracking the direction we wanted to go. Like, we're kind of losing on this job. Let's regroup and try to figure out a way to not lose.
Yeah.
Just win, like barely win, but still win.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of having the data at your fingertips. And I'll probably say it 100 times, like, just quick execution with the software is so important. Just understanding where you're at. Like, hey, we're 50% of the job, but we've used 80% of the hour of allotment. Now what do we do? Okay, like, we're going to have this guy logged into multiple things, and hey, I have some free time. I'll kind of make this thing work, because ultimately we want the data to show were we profitable or not. And, like, when you're a small company, it's like we all have each other's back. I'd say that to my guys all the time. Like, you guys got my back. I'll bend over backwards for you. And it's great to be able to have the data, because quite often you might think that you're behind, but not really know how far off track you are. And then you realize, oh man, we kind of really took it on the chin on that job, and didn't have the data to be able to understand how to either put more people on or less people on, and then communicate with the customer effectively.
Does the software give alerts for stuff like that? It's just say Cam's over is a lot of time on production for some reason. Does it give you an alert? Does it say, hey, he's over 15 minutes right now?
It can. That's like one of those custom things that you can set up. And it seems to be relatively easy with ECI. There's JobBOSS², I should say, but there are ways to kind of, if you want to see a control in this specific job, hey, it's probably more viewed from, like, the calendar perspective of, like, these jobs are running behind, and it's either because of the start date or it's because it's taking longer than we expected. So yeah, you definitely can set those alarms up.
So can you take us through the process of what it looks like or basically what it looks like in your software, from quoting a job all the way through invoicing the customer? Like, what does it actually take in order to create the quote? And I guess also it's a question of, what does quoting look like in ECI? Like, can you actually use it to estimate the amount of time you're going to, like, so from what I've seen, like, some softwares you put in, like, all right, so here's my routing. Here's the amount of time I'm allotting for each of these routings. Here's the shop rate for all of these different processes. All right, then it gives you a real cost estimate of your company's cost into this job. including material, and then you could basically adjust your profitability from there. But anyway, so from that process all the way through manufacturing it to shipping it to invoicing the customer, like how does that flow?
Yeah, I mean, you're just about 100% correct. Creating a part number and creating a quote based off of what you feel is going to be specific time allotment and costs for each one of those steps. So obviously, like, a machinist is better at quoting a machine job than someone that doesn't have any experience in machining.
You should say that again.
Yeah. So a machinist is probably better at quoting machine work than someone that doesn't have any experience.
Yeah.
And that's, I think it's so important that, your sales guys have time on the shop floor. Because it's like, I can do that in 15 minutes. And now I have a part that I've kept on my desk that was from the Mazak open house up in Northeast from this was 2011. It was a lathe part, a turn part that it's got features everywhere, and it's like a ton of work, and then it's like, man, I think this thing took like 8.5 minutes to do, which as a modern machinist, you're like, oh yeah, I can do that. And it had some hobbing done on it, and it had some turning, it had a bunch of boring, and had a lot of really critical features. But like the old school machinist might look at that, that's like a 2-hour part, 3-hour part. Now, obviously it gets faster with production quantities and things like that. But it's important that the sales team is current and with like machining technology as well. I'm not sure if it's as big of a problem now because machining has gotten more popular in the last 20 years, 15 years. So like, seems like, full depth of cut, speeds and feeds, like it seems a bit more understandable than it used to be. But you'd have the machine shops doing like, I'm just going to take 100 passes in 1/8 inch or something. And that's why the part takes 3 hours, and that's why CAM software does it in 15 minutes. But to get back to your question, so you develop a part number, develop the routing that you think that specific part is going to need, and develop your estimate. And so there's areas for each individual process, any outsourcing costs, obviously the ability to send RFQs out if you have the time for that. The nice thing that I found with ECI is that it has an built-in email system. So I can send out purchase orders, RFQs from the software, rather than other ERP systems will just cut a PDF and then you
have to
send it into your email, which then there's no way to track it,
right?
Which seemed really odd to me. But so I can just say, hey, I'm going to send an RFQ to 3 different laser cutters or whatever. You get that information back, plug it in, create your estimate, receive a PO, and it's pretty simple because you just look up the estimate number and it pulls all that information in. And then if you need to do editing to the specific traveler before it hits the floor, a lot of guys are I'm just going to throw time on this thing. This is kind of the customer said we need to be at $50 a part, so I'll just make it look like I'm $50 a part, but didn't really define the steps on the shop floor. So then sometimes that process would go to a foreman to define the work on the floor. I like to kind of imagine what it takes to create the part before I get to there. If it's really difficult, because we do like fully built pieces of equipment as well, and it's you got 100 parts, and they all have their own specific steps in them. So you can't always define all of those things. But then you get the bottleneck of, well, now we have the PO. I still can't cut the thing to the floor because it's going to take 2 weeks of developing all of the processes for each individual part so we can track them. So I try to get it as close to possible in the beginning as I can. And then from cutting a PO or getting the PO in, it's basically just printing the travelers and generating the order. And we're starting to work through like some different paperwork processes that we can show the foreman, hey, these are the things that are coming up. These are the jobs. These are the travelers, so that they have some extra understanding of what's going on. If there's anything specific, but I'll take the traveler and then always staple prints to them. And then I highlight areas that I think are, hey, it's like this. There's these holes. This stuff's going to potentially move if you do this process first. Make sure these are done correctly. Or there's this thing that you may not have seen on this weldment. Make sure you look at this thing. I'll highlight that stuff, or I'll talk that stuff over with the foreman, and then they all communicate that stuff.
I love having that too, because it eliminates a lot of that tribal knowledge, or things that, you're more experienced. You've made parts similar to this before. You already know what's going to happen. But I feel like a lot of times somebody will see that and be like, yeah, I mean, I understand what's going to happen here. Like it's going to bow in this area whenever you weld it. And so then that material is going to just be missing whenever you actually go to finish machine it, because of deflection or whatever. But then they don't say anything to anybody. They're like, oh, they'll figure it out. They're going to make it. They'll figure it out. They're smart. Right. And then somebody doesn't catch it. And then now you've got to start all over again.
Right.
Figure out how you're going to get material fast enough and all that stuff. It's like so nice to just throw those notes in there. Like, hey, these are just some things that I noticed real fast. I'm going to throw it on there. Maybe you already know, maybe you don't. Either way, it's there. And if somebody else later down the road that I hire, goes to do this job, they'll see that same information as well.
Yeah.
And then also like your method of having them write anything on the traveler, and then you going back and putting that back in as well. I mean,
yeah, that's been really kind of life changing. I'm
going to steal that from you, by the way.
Yeah, I saw another company's traveler a decade ago at my last firm, and I was like, oh yeah, you have like, they just have some lines on there, like 4 or 5 lines for each step, and it's one of those probably like, it's just data, but it's a kind of empowerment as well. Like, hey, I think this is how it's should be done, but I could be completely wrong. And you're the one like holding the welder, or, running the part. So you tell me what it is that you think how this thing should be built. And hey, we need less setup time, more cycle time, less cycle time, more setup time type of thing. And then it's obviously imperative, like we were saying before, that you if you're going to give the guy the opportunity to tell you how they think the job should be done, you better put it in the system.
Right.
So the next time they see it again, because it's like, there's the boss telling me I should do this stuff, and I spent my extra time and, doing that, and they don't care anyway. So, you just have to make it important for your process to add it back.
Yeah. I think as far as like being an employee and making it feel like you're a part of the company and like your input actually matters, like that's a pretty critical step.
Right.
And pretty nice too. Like you can see like, oh, well, when I made this the last time, I gave them these notes and now it's part of the actual process. So I really am a part of this thing.
Right.
What I do does matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure, one of the biggest things with anything, but in my experience with ERP, if you get good data, if you put good data in, you'll get good data out.
Right.
But if somebody is not doing that, they're just going through the motions, forgetting things like that, it almost makes it pointless, because then you end up in a spot where you're having to go to somebody that actually knows what's going on. You're like, hey, this doesn't look right. What's actually going on here? One of the biggest things for us at my last job was due dates. And this is going to sound silly, but I don't know how many times I would get travelers that would have a due date that was basically the same day as when the paperwork was
issued.
Exactly. Which usually was like the same day. And it's like, this is not a hot job. What's going on here? But then it would have like a start and an end date that was, 2 weeks later. And I'm curious, does ECI have ways, and this was in JobBOSS², do they have ways now to kind of automate that? Because it seemed a little odd to me that you had to manually input a lot of that data.
I haven't had that problem.
So you probably pay attention to what you're doing.
Well, it does. I mean, it reverse engineers the start date based on every amount of time you say each specific task is going to take. And then it's, so it could be, hey, the customer sent me a PO and their due date is incorrect, and I built everything off of their specific due date.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of fills up the schedule bucket based off of all that time. And then we'll make calculations to the schedule based off of all of these work centers are already at capacity. So we need to move that task ahead of time or behind schedule. It'll kind of shift that stuff around for you manually. And then that's, that can be, as we all know, like managing the schedule can just be a job in itself, just pushing stuff around. And okay, like I think you have to have a handle on the digital side of the schedule, but then also, hey, you kind of still need that person to just know, yeah, this customer's a little bit more hot on this one. So I wish that could be completely data driven. And
can you change job priority?
Yeah. Oh,
like,
yeah.
You say like, this is a high priority job, and it'll bump it ahead on the schedule.
Yeah, you can shift it wherever you want to. Yeah, because that stuff. I mean, we see that almost every day. Those aren't as important anymore. Or we got we got another shipment of something, and this is the hot thing now. Can you shift this thing around?
Whenever you change something to high priority, does it automatically adjust the scheduling for you to put that ahead, or do you have to go move it around?
I think that it does. I don't want to answer that 100%, but I think that it does. Yeah.
Okay.
I've looked at JobBOSS’'s visual scheduler before because we tried to integrate it at my last job, and again, that's a good example of if you don't put good data in, you're not going to get good data out. They weren't putting good data in, so it was completely useless.
Yeah.
However, that's not ECI's fault. But I could definitely see where it would be helpful, especially when you've got a mix of everything. You've got large volume jobs that take weeks. You've got, one-off jobs that still might take days because they're involved, or you might have a 2-hour job here and there. It's definitely takes a lot of the thought out of it because, like you guys said, trying to schedule for a shop, especially a mixed bag shop, it can be a nightmare. And one little thing can throw it off the rails. And at least if you have that software at your disposal, you have some kind of resource to go back to help correct it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's like the adage of we'll just do whatever is easiest. So you throw all the travelers out there to all the guys, and it's like, I'm just going to do what is I kind of want to do. Unfortunately, I need to do the hard stuff first because those are the ones that are going to take the most amount of time.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know the project management perspective is better than it was when I was using E2. So there has been quite a bit of update, and I wish I could speak more intelligently on the scheduling side of JobBOSS², but it seemed to work pretty well for us, and it does give. There's like a live data view that we just put a new work center up in our race shop. That's just basically a big, it's a big TV, and this stuff is so cheap anymore that you get a little tiny computer and a TV, and you can kind of put any data where you want it. But
$300 and you're ready to roll.
Yeah,
it's great.
So we can now show all the jobs really easily, and obviously they can access that stuff if they want to, but at least it gives them like a really good baseline of, hey, this is the stuff that's like updated every day based on the things that we log in and log out of. So now we can see this is the hot things right now, and that's the other intrinsic part of the shop floor side is if you don't want the foreman to have to say every day in your like 5-minute huddle, like this is the stuff that's hot, then you need to have a way that everybody can kind of see what's the next thing in line. So, because it's not always just going to naturally flow from the mill to the lathe to the welder to the sandblaster, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
for sure.
I like to try to eliminate as much communication as possible.
Right.
Like basically prevent us from having to have all of these conversations about how we're going to make these parts, or, oh, this is the routing that we need to do, or like, oh, I need you to do this one first before that one because of whatever reason. Like, I want all that stuff to just automatically be figured out.
Right.
In like a day-to-day function. Then you can talk about cool stuff instead of parts.
Right. Yeah.
It's definitely frustrating when, you get a new project in and you have to have a meeting about it, when you start it, so everybody knows what's going on, halfway through, so that, people know where it's at. and then towards the end when it's getting wrapped up, and it's meetings are important, but it can be a very large time sink.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's inevitable though to have all those meetings.
It doesn't have to be, no, by any means.
Depends on your processes, of course.
It depends.
It depends. That's what they say.
So, Sam, we have a couple of questions about, ECI, ERP, so on and so forth, that we got through Instagram. We're going to ask you a couple of those real quick. So from Maple Lane Machine and Tool, who was the guest on our previous episode, he asked us, what does ECI offer for a small 1 to 2 person shop, and will it really be noticeable?
It's a difficult position to be in trying to understand when software is necessary. If you're doing a big mix of things, then my worry was like, I could probably get a couple different easy apps to work together, but then ultimately I'm planning for growth. So at what point does that stuff then not really function in my business well either? So when do I take the plunge into jumping into a software system that's maybe too big for me right now, but good for me in the next 3 to 5 years or 2 years, or, it could be next year. Like I said before, the beauty of JobBOSS² was that it's easily executable. From my perspective, it beat other software systems in the front office side of time that it took me to process a new customer request, a new part number, because I had to do the CAD, I had to do the engineering work. You have all the other work that has to be done that's outside of your software system. You don't want the software system to be the bottleneck to slow you down. So JobBOSS² was, I don't want to say exponentially faster, but it was significantly faster at processing the work and getting the notes that I declared were important on that job to the shop floor. So from time of customer request to activating the sales order, the work order to the shop floor seemed very, very quick compared to other software systems. And it wasn't just because I was decent at software. It was because the software moved fluently and through their processes. So, I would say that was the thing that would drive me towards JobBOSS² if I was a small facility, because, how much time do you want to deal with the front end of your software system, your ERP system, when it's important to actually go make parts as well? Because, moving everything through your ERP system doesn't make you money. Like actually delivering parts is what affects the bottom end. So from a 1 to 2 person shop, it would be noticeable. It could be bad. I mean, it could be something that you don't want to do because it's just too much time to suck all that into front end work. But like I said before, like if you have a mindset that the business is growing, you have to at some point start to plan for that growth. And the earlier you can integrate software and become familiar, the better. So it would be noticeable. I think I would recommend it for a small shop. I don't know what the top end of the business is. Is it good for a $50 million business, $100 million business, 10? It has to be right for your business though. If you do a lot of like internet-based sales, connecting to other apps and things like that, ECI may not be the strongest software solution for that, but I would definitely research it for a specific company, even that small, because if they're asking the question now, there's already issues that they think that software organization is going to help make it better.
Yeah. I would assume too that even, as a 1 or 2 person business, just the ability to track all of your jobs and know where they're all at in that process, even though you may not have that much work to keep track of, if nothing else, it gets it out of your brain.
Yeah.
You can just hop on and be like, okay, so this is where everything's at. Cool. But yeah, I sent that to plating 2 weeks ago. I need to check on that, that sort of thing. Instead of just always trying to remember everything, or remembering you forgot to order material for that one job, even as a small company, I would think that would be pretty beneficial.
I would say it would be very beneficial. I don't have anything, but I can see the benefit in it. But I also, as a small shop, I know the hard thing to jump into is the cost. It's expensive. You're not going to get into something for a few $1,000s. It's going to be 10, 15 grand if you are a 1 or 2 man shop. I had a conversation with a local company recently, and I explained that to them. And then I noticed like 6 months later, they redid their pricing structure to try to fit a smaller companies, but their small company pricing, it was revenue-based pricing. But for a small machine shop, their pricing was still $0 to $2.5 million sales. Well, a shop that's making $2.5 million is a lot different than a shop doing $500,000. Like, and that pricing point was still, I think it was like $12,000 a year or something.
Yeah.
Which for a one-man shop like myself, that's overkill. It'd be nice to see somebody introduce something that's actually for a one-man shop. Maybe you only allow them to track 5 jobs at a time, or, limit what they can actually do so they can grow with the software and make it more affordable to start.
Basically have like starter packages or something for a lower price.
Yeah. No different from what QuickBooks does. They have, individual employee version that's $7 a month, or you can jump up to a full business plan for $45 a month.
I could
I can speak to that a little bit, I guess. Our ECI system is based off of employees that will use it. So you get like, I think you get unlimited employees on the shop floor. And then you have how many seats you get that are actually able to log into the front end and like actually see the financial data and things like that. So obviously my account is unlimited, and then I can add in one more person that's like the foreman that they can log in and see things. But then I can add unlimited work centers and unlimited employees, unlimited jobs. And then you can add in their quality module later if you want to. I added the schedule module into, so you don't have to buy everything at once. And it is nice to be able to, because that does keep the cost down. And you can design the routing system to almost be a quality module as well. So you really want to track a lot of that stuff. You can kind of do that without the quality module initially. And then obviously when you start to need reporting and, you're talking ISO and aerospace stuff, you're going to need it.
Yeah,
that's true. You create all of your own, like work centers and processes and all that stuff in there?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I've seen in the one that I use. I was just curious how it works in others. Like I actually had to create like a production work center and like a production support work center, and say like in production support, you have like material prep and paint and all that stuff. And then in production, I did like all of our machines are in there, all of our processes are in there. So like CNC mill, 3-axis and lathe and all that. And then from there, I have what equipment does those processes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Same way with ECI.
Okay.
Nice. That kind of answers the second question, which is from Blue Collar Traveler. Can I start out simple with like separate to-do lists for different jobs and build in more complexity? It certainly sounds like that is somewhat of an option. You can start small and you have the ability to add more as you need it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, you can make the system as simple as you want. Your traveler could be create part, but then you could create more work centers. Like, oh yeah, I am kind of, we do a lot of hand prep stuff. So we're always kind of trying to decide, okay, if we only do one of these, breaking each step out of it is a bit cumbersome. But if we're going to do 50, then I can do the first step and I can kind of do that without having to do all the other steps initially after. And that stuff can get done. It can get prepped by a different person. So you have to take that into account with the quantities of each individual job. Like if you're going to do one, you're kind of going to saw it and put it in the mill and, mill it, machine it, whatever, and ship it out. But if you're going to do 1,000 of them, like that saw operation, if it's not automated, it becomes a large amount of time. So like, hey, I'm probably not going to do all those at the same time. I'm going to have a person to saw cut them. So I'm going to be standing there, hopefully sawing and deburring at the same time. But as you can make it very simple and then add complexity. My last firm, we used to build fully built refrigeration equipment, like the 300-ton ammonia chillers. And I brought a company over from Scotland. We were the U.S. manufacturer, and I used E2 as our build book. So I had a traveler that was about 20 pages long. So that was
wow.
that was build the framework, the cut lists that would have all the raw materials, and then it was, all the outsourcing stuff, and then all the pipe work, all the the loading, all the quality pieces, pictures. I mean, it ended up being a fully built manual for that specific part number that we could then track. The part number had, red line if we needed to have, supervisors and employees sign off, because it was pipe welding. So we had like radiography as well. So, we'd have initials and notes and things like that inside, that then that traveler we always kept, and we could pass that on to the customer as well, so that they could see that every point that they wanted to have identified, we were identifying. So it can become very, very complex, obviously.
Mm.
Whenever you get to that complexity too, being able to have all of the, like every single part of that assembly tracked, and have, each part that needs manufactured, you have the tracking for each individual part. All of the hardware that you need is tracked, like, and then the actual manufacturing process is documented and recorded. Like, that makes that software invaluable.
Right.
Imagine trying to do that without the software or without any ERP, or I don't know. I mean, people do it, but
I
I don't want to.
I can tell you how it goes when a company has ERP software and they're not using it correctly. It's terrible.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh, it's terrible. You never know
Or
what hardware you got. You never know what's coming. You don't know when you're going to get it.
Right.
You don't know what stage parts are at. You don't know what's getting fabbed, what's getting machined. It's terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
So
like
what's
you
the
said,
point then?
put good in, get good out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's like that's the motorsport adage. Is we're kind of data nerds on our side, because there's the same thing happens in motorsport. Like, oh, I'll track this thing, and these lap times or this tire temps and pressures and things like that, and but they don't use anything to their advantage.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the point of spending the time to track it? Because you're ultimately losing more now because you're wasting the time, especially in ERP. Like, someone's looking at this stuff, they're just not using the information for anything. So we're wasting more money by having a poorly functioning ERP system than we would if we had nothing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yep.
All right, Sam. Do you have a tip for us for this episode? Were you able to prepare one?
I didn't.
That's okay. I actually, if Cam or Brad, if either of you have one, but if not, I think I've got one.
Go for it, Pat, if you got one.
All right. I'm just going to reiterate that if you have any kind of a software system or any kind of system in general, make sure that you're putting in good data, because it really is paramount that what you put in is what you get out. And if you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. Even if you put good data in, if someone's screwing it up in the middle, you might still get garbage out. But if you don't put good in, you will not ever get good out.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's accurate.
So, and that goes for machining as well. If you're putting in garbage machining practices or tooling or whatever, I'm not going to say you're guaranteed to get garbage out, but it's certainly a higher chance.
And you definitely see those people sometimes. They're just like constantly fighting themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and always disorganized, always having trouble getting things done. And then always like, what is going on? Like everything keeps failing on me.
That's when you tell them to listen to the Impractical Machinists podcast and not Joe Rogan talking about aliens.
That's right.
Yeah.
Get your practical tips here.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
No, my tip would just be find something that gives you, time freedom. I think everyone wants to be good at what they do, and you don't want to get sucked into this trap of just like, multiple forms of data entry, and we can kind of do anything, but not everything. We that's the problem of growing a business is like, all right, where do we start? And it becomes so tough to juggle all the things until you get to the place. And then it's like, every level there's new challenges. And the challenge when you're growing is just like the time portion. Like, how do I be a good dad? How do I be a good boss? How do I be a leader? How do I be a good machinist or welder or whatever task it is that you're still doing? How do I keep track of everything and make sure we're making money and, promote my guys that are doing well, but then also have like some sort of time for myself. I've always been like a big freedom and fulfillment type of person. And I try to make sure I take care of myself and I have a CrossFit gym in my shop that I try to get out and do my workouts at lunchtime and so just make sure you have time to be able to take care of the important things in life. And it's like, a lot of that is like, hey, I don't want to pick the wrong software that just causes me to get further in the weeds and further behind with the time quotient, the time portion of my life. So it's a really important thing when in picking software packages and whether it be ERP or CAM or CAD or things like that. It's so important that you pick the right one that works with your business. And I know it's difficult to find the right thing, but we've settled on JobBOSS² because it works well for us. So take that for what it's worth. But it could be a good decision for someone else. It might not be.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, Sam. Where can people find you if they want to follow your adventures with Monarch Manufacturing?
So we're Made by Monarch on Instagram and Facebook, and monarch-manufacturing.com. And new website's coming out soon. So we're trying to be a bit more social, but that's the other thing. Trying to make sure you have time for Instagram stuff. It's hard to always make manufacturing sexy. So it's you gotta create some cool videos and things like that. But we try to be pretty active on Instagram at least.
Be sure to check out Sam's page, and for any of you shops out there that are struggling with scheduling and organization issues, you might just hit up ECI. They might have the solution that you need. That's all for this episode of the Impractical Machinists Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the Practical Machinists YouTube channel so you never miss an episode.
Also, give us a like or a 5-star rating if you enjoyed the episode. Drop a comment down below what you learned from us, or to share your own experience and spread the word and let your fellow machinists know about us.
If you have any follow-up questions, you can either DM us on Instagram, the Practical Machinists Forum, or on the Discord in our Instagram bios. Check out our Instagram as well at JobShopperTN, at Machining is Cool, at Marvel Machining. Also be sure to follow Made by Monarch and Monarch_Autosports on Instagram as well.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Keep those chips flying.